Today on the Clean Power Hour, the infrastructure bill got signed. $1.2 trillion of infrastructure, including many dollars for renewable energy, many dollars for electrification of transportation. We're going to talk about that. We're also going to touch on a very cool agrivoltaic study that's being done at the University of Illinois with a group of other researchers. We're going to talk about a very large solar and storage project in California, new record-setting solar and storage. We're going to talk about a commercial solar guy solar project. Speaking of commercial solar guy, welcome to the show, John.
Timothy, how are you? Good to see you. Yeah, we got a nice little John Weaver project to talk about. We got a record California, but I think the nicest thing for the week for us to really cross our fingers for and maybe even call our politicians about is the Build Back Better, the reconciliation bill was said expressly that it was going to follow the infrastructure bill. And within that is some pretty good financial benefits for our industry and anybody who buys a solar project. So yes, I have a very nice project I'm going to share with everybody, and I'm looking forward to saying, hey, everybody, look at my pretty pictures. But I do want you to call your politician if you're of the nature and talk about them signing the Build Back Better bill, because that's important.
Yeah, we can't stop with the infrastructure bill. We need the Build Back Better bill, but we also need to celebrate the wins, right? And
yeah,
I think there's something like $80 billion in clean energy legislation inside the infrastructure bill. It's a good number. It's not a completely cleaning the grid number, but it's a good number. And in my mind, we need $1 trillion a year every year for the next 20 years to electrify everything and clean the grid. But what is your understanding, John, of the infrastructure bill and its potential impact on solar storage and wind energy?
Well, first off, it's really big and there's a million things in it. And I'm so in the weeds of both that bill and the Build Back Better. I think they've started to blend together in my head. So it's challenging to remember all of the different things and all the things, the headlines I see on and the few articles I read. And, but, at the highest level, I am not a build infrastructure follower. So at the highest level, what I see is that there's lots of money for energy storage, for car chargers. There's money for power grid, specifically for transmission. There's cash for microgrids. There's a bunch of other things. There's actually quite a bit of it for energy, for climate change, for infrastructure related to our industry. And there's going to be a lot of it. And there's going to be a lot of economic benefit because of it. The one I noticed the most of that I paid attention to a little more was the car charging infrastructure, because I happen to be working with a customer for a commercial car charging unit for trucks. And I just want to know those numbers. So it's interesting to see that stuff. And there's going to be a lot that comes from it. I mean, $1 trillion, that's a lot. I mean, the United States is a $20 trillion economy. So and this is spread out over 10 years. So it's not exactly, well, that's the infrastructure bill. The Build Back Better is over 10 years. But still, there's going to be a lot of stuff coming out of it. It's much bigger than just me. So you got to talk to a professional. There's a spreadsheet out there with some very hardworking gentleman said, hey, it's taken us 2 weeks to break up every single piece of it. It's like 15 pages long. The summary document from the House was 130 pages for the Build Back Better when I read the summary of it. 130-page summary document. So these are big documents.
Yep. Yeah, I have to, admit that I only follow these big packages very loosely. I saw Jan Brandt at Solar Wake Up has been covering this regularly. Check out his website, solarwakeup.com. And but in your mind, you opened saying that, well, we also need Build Back Better.
Yeah.
Why is that? What is in Build Back Better that's not in the infrastructure bill?
So Build Back Better turns the tax credit that's 26% into 30% for the next 10 years, makes it a direct pay option, which means if somebody doesn't have tax liability and they file taxes,
Yeah.
then they can turn that tax credit into cash.
Yep.
There's a tax credit for energy storage standalone, just like for solar. So then you can just do a battery on its own, get a 30% tax credit. There's if you build in coal areas, former coal towns where coal mines or coal plants were, you get a tax credit. If you use domestic content, you get a tax credit. So there's a chance probably to push the tax credit from anywhere to 36 to 50%, somewhere in that window. You have to use for larger projects, you have to use labor that is paid prevailing wage if you want to keep that tax credit for above a megawatt. Below a megawatt, I don't think there's prevailing wage restrictions. Not restrictions, prevailing wage requirements. But above a meg, cost of labor is going to go up a little bit. It should. That you have to do that in order to get the 30% tax credit. So that's something that's coming.
Yeah, every solar industry professional needs to understand this. If you're going to use the tax credit on larger projects, you're going to have to use prevailing wage labor.
Yeah.
So that is a stance basically that the Biden administration is taking, encouraging union labor, but it doesn't have to be union, it just has to be prevailing wage. And
Yes.
every state, every jurisdiction has their own rules about what that is. So you just have to dig around on that. It's not a nail in the coffin for non-union construction companies. It just means that they have to level up, and it's a way to level the playing field in a way, which is good. And it means higher wages for workers, which is good too. That trickles down.
That
Uh,
matters. That matters. So that trickles up. We're paying the workers,
yeah.
and when the people have some money, they're going to spend it, and then the wealthy can make a little more. So this is pay some people, damn it. Especially since this is finance company money in the end. They can afford it. Sorry. I support it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm with you. I want living wages for all workers. And when workers don't have living wages, they don't have adequate health care and child care and so many things that really can snowball to the economy that we have today, where people are not healthy and they're very low income, and that means that the economy is very brittle. So it's not sustainable. So I've got a story on screen about the Daggett Solar and Storage Project, Edward Sanborn Project in Kern County, California. This is a record-breaking solar plus storage project supplying California Community Energy Group. I don't quite understand what that is, but this is a 760 megawatt of PV and 2.4 gigawatt hours of battery storage when fully complete. And it combines standalone battery storage and batteries directly charging from the solar PV. Developer is TerraGen, and the EPC is Mortenson. So just a nice big solar plus storage project. This is the power plant of the future, John, right? We're seeing these gas and coal plants being replaced with solar plus battery storage facilities. And I call it coal to solar. We actually have coal to solar legislation in Illinois now, where they're shuttering a fleet of 9 Vistra coal plants and building solar and storage on site or surrounding the old coal plants. So this is the future, and it's just happening first in California, somewhat in Texas, but it's soon going to be in every state across the country.
The CCAs in California are being pushed now to get just as much 24/7 firm energy as the main utilities. and the CCAs were just getting some wind and solar. And the CCAs, they're the community solar, but utility scale. That California went big on community solar. They didn't do these little 5 meg things. They said, you know what? Let's just make big companies. And but now these companies, they're buying from these facilities, and there's smart people that know how much capacity these power lines can take at any particular moment with the flow. And if they can capture some solar in the daytime and store it, and capture, even because this place looks like it's way bigger than what the solar plant can generate, and that's pretty cool. um so I'm just we're coming to that edge now in California where we're going to see longer term batteries, and it's going to be specifically for energy storage, arbitraging it into that evening peak. And that evening peak, that duck curve is now it's now being attacked. And so we're going to see that duck curve start to flatten. And I'm really interested in watching it because this project is one of those. It's built for the sake of pouring out from 5 to 10 p.m. That's going to be the first battery, and we're going to see that get filled up with a few hundred gigawatt hours of capacity. Maybe 40, 50, 60 megawatt hours by 20, or not megawatt hours, gigawatts of capacity. By 2026, 11 gigawatts of clean, firm energy must be on in California. This is going to be part of that. These types of projects where it's just a standalone battery, that's going to be real important, worth a lot.
Yeah, batteries are three-dimensional power plants, right? They can run 24/7, and they're very flexible. They're instantaneous. There's so many lovely things that batteries do. So, going to build a lot of battery farms in our future. Well, let's talk about what's going on in New Bedford. You've got a lovely,
Oh,
looks like dual tilt project, John. Is that what this is?
yeah, east-west, because we had some shade challenges, so we wanted to directly to the south. So we wanted to just kind of get a different electricity generation profile. We're in New England and we're in November, so the shade's coming early, and we got to see it firsthand. We got to test out our making sure that our sun eye worked and it matches up our hourly numbers. So it's my first time doing an east-west dual tilt. It's pretty cool. It's nice and clean looking. 186 kW. It got more volume on the rooftop than a due south at 10 degrees.
Yeah.
And it had a similar energy generation profile as a 5-degree dual due south, but it had a little more capacity. And there were other reasons too, like we bought the panels and all the material when everything was still cheap. So it made sense to use a little more panel than more efficiency with the product. And we did a little calculus. So at the end, east-west, my first one. It's real, the whole roof is covered with panels.
Yeah, I love the east-west. You get very good energy density. I modeled many east-west projects, but I never built one. And so it's nice to see. It's a thing. And well, I'm curious, what is the racking manufacturer on this?
Unirack.
Okay.
Yep.
Very good.
Yeah. Got some Unirack. We got some nice solar edge. We only have one penetration on the structure, which is nice. You never want to make too many holes. New roofing material. We're going to get the roof clean because those are bifacial panels. So we'll see. We'll see what the numbers look like. I like this. I like the install, and it's real aesthetically pleasing. It's right on the water, fall, blah, blah, blah.
Good stuff. So you found a story about Hanwha and REC Solar.
That was from this morning. So Hanwha said that they're going to put some money into REC Silicon to help them get the two facilities they have, which are relatively small, 28,000 megatons worth, and just get them up and running again in the U.S., and that's the key. But just popped out this morning.
Yeah, I was talking with a colleague this morning about reshoring of manufacturing. This is part of that trend. there's a variety of reasons why I think we're going to see reshoring. The supply chain issues have really been a wake up call when a lot of stuff is coming from Southeast Asia, and then you have backlog at the ports, and then we have the potential for tariffs, and we have the WRO on forced labor. That's the withhold and release order against forced labor issues in China. So many reasons, and but Hanwha is a major solar panel manufacturer. They make Hanwha Q-cell solar panels. Hanwha also has a development arm. They're a vertically integrating company. They hired away the development team from Beiwa Re, and they're buying projects. They're greenfielding development projects, and they have a panel factory in where? Georgia?
Yep. Yep.
So where is the REC silicon factory going to be or rebooted?
I think it's referenced in the article, but one's in Washington and one's in Montana. Butte, Montana, which is a 8,000 ton or megaton, and then the other is in somewhere in Washington State.
Yeah,
And they're both
Moses
hydro.
Lake, Washington.
There you go, Moses Lake.
And they have a 1.7 gigawatt Q-cell factory in Dalton, Georgia. And, you know, among other things, Q-cells makes ultra low carbon solar panels. Not all of the solar panels are low carbon, so you have to ask when you're talking to the reps there. That just means that they're using clean electricity to make the solar cells.
Do you know what the payback is on those? Isn't it like 6 months?
That's a good question. I don't know. We'll have to ask the Ultra Low Carbon Solar Alliance, but
They have it on their website. We've looked at it before. We've seen it. It's like 60, 80, 50% lower than a standard panel. So we've seen
Yeah.
it before. They have it on their site. I've seen it. It's like 40, 50%,
Yeah.
which means it's probably like 6 months. I'd love to know specifically I'm selling one of those. Maybe I got to get a spec page from them for an ultra low carbon product. That's pretty cool.
yeah, I talked to their executive director on the Solar Podcast. That's almost a year ago now, probably. But that low carbon phenomenon, it originated in France, I want to say. The French government drove that initiative, and but now it's a global phenomenon. Of course, I mean every manufacturer is under pressure to decarbonize their supply chain and their products, and you can do it when you make solar with green energy, meaning hydro or solar or wind, and I think, well, so in your mind though, this REC solar investment. Is REC, they're also a panel manufacturer, right?
So yes, and I don't know exactly. So REC started off as a silicon manufacturer from Norway. Then they started making panels later on. Recently, they were purchased by a very large Indian group, and they had the capital to scale their solar panel manufacturing. I'm hearing to like 10 gigs from the current gig or two. So I don't know if the silicon and the panel manufacturing are the same legal entity. I have a feeling they're separate entities.
Sure.
And so the panel manufacturer, REC from Singapore, was just bought by an Indian company. I think the silicon might be legally independent, seemingly, because did you see the name Reliance as an Indian company referenced in that article? I didn't. And so my assumption is that Reliance, which is the Indian company that bought Singapore REC, didn't buy US/Norway REC, which is just silicon. So yes, same company. They're very proud of it. I've interviewed them before, and it's just cool to hear their knowledge and their tools and how they do quality assurance on their product. It's like if you said, John, you got all these and REC, and you're going to be stuck for 10 years. You won't have any repair. Which panel? REC would be up there. It's like buying a Volvo, it felt like super safe. That's the thing that's just going to work because they know. And if it fails, well, you know, you're the one that's going to die on the moon. Such is life. It's just, you got to deal with it.
Yeah, but they have built a brand name. You know, when I hear REC, I think high quality.
Yes, yeah. So So this is now one thing I wanted to throw on. The Build Back Better bill has solar manufacturing incentives in it. So there's a huge reason why this is coming. And the folks who wrote that article, Solar Power World Online on Twitter, she even mentioned it. Kelly did, and she said very specifically, all this is going to be for naught unless we sign the Build Back Better bill, which has the solar manufacturing energy credits. And I think they're just like 25% on the supply chain stuff. I don't think it's the supply chain version where we saw, 4, 5, 6 cents per hour for wafers and this percent for polysilicon and this percent for that. But there are manufacturing tax benefits for U.S. purchased supply chain stuff. So the entire solar cell supply chain, if you make polysilicon in the U.S., you get a tax credit. If you make solar cells, solar wafers, solar modules, tax credit. And I think even for energy storage as well. So there's like a big chunky chunk of money if you invest in manufacturing. And so hopefully we'll see more of this. We'll see. I hope it spreads globally. But I'll tell you, those Chinese companies, they're putting out huge volume. Just, 100... The world's volume of polysilicon last year to make our 120 gigs was like 500,000 megatons, something like that. This volume is 28. Next year's volume is going to be closer to a million megatons. And we're going to do like, maybe not next year, end of next year. We're going to have close to a million, and we're going to do like 300 megawatts, 200 megawatts, easy next year. So, 30,000 is a good number. We need to be at like, I don't know, 100, 150. Probably we need to be doing 150,000. 5 more of these deals for the U.S. to be a viable, cost-efficient industry. I don't know this. I'm just guesstimating.
Yeah, the Chinese make the majority of the polysilicon. They also make the majority of the solar panels, but that number ticks down as you go further down the food chain. I think 70% of the world's solar panels are made in China, something like that. And but there's no reason we can't onshore this stuff. We have the technology, we have the wherewithal. We just have to decide to do it. And yeah, it's going to be a little more expensive, but then you don't have to ship it halfway around the world, so it'll have a lower carbon footprint. You won't have supply chain issues. It doesn't matter if China gets a cold. We have it right here in our backyard, and then it's just better for everybody. And the Chinese can give up some of that market share without blinking an eye. The whole industry is growing so fast that it's just pure growth. But let's move on, John. You've got a nice story that you wrote in PV Magazine. We're covering a couple of your PV Magazine stories.
50-year solar.
Yeah, 50-year solar. And I'm going to put this on screen. So what's the story?
So there's been a movement to research solar panels that can last 50 years. This research, I think, has been started due to bifacial glass solar panels. And I think in the marketplace, my favorite solar panel manufacturer in the whole wide world, Meyer Burger, they might have the first panel that will last for 50 years at a viable number and be above like 85% efficiency after 50 years. And they may not be the first. They're probably the first that I saw, because there's other glass bifacial manufacturers who are out before them. And I don't even know if this product's on the market. They just have a spec page out. I'm sure you can buy it. But glass bifacial solar panels have the potential to last 50 years above 85% efficiency. And I ran the numbers on if a solar panel would last 50% or above 93%. So the number that's in the Meyer Burger spec page, I said, okay, they specify 93% after 30 years. I'm just gonna sales pitch that we can do 93% after 50 years. Just add 50 more years. I ran the math, and it adds about 46% to the discounted cash flow. Now, this is before a whole bunch of other things, and I did it this way because I didn't want to insinuate that I knew what 2 inverter replacements would cost. and whatever else might happen after 50 years. But I thought it interesting that we could add 46%, hundreds, just think about this, Tim. If you guys were developing a project and you were selling it to a capital partner, you would sell it based upon the future electricity generation. And if your contract had a 50-year land lease agreement instead of a 25-year land lease agreement, you'd be able to sell it for some of that money in years 26 through 50. In my little rough math world, the beginnings of that equation gives you 46% more money. Meaning if you were to take a project from greenfield to PTO, you could make 46%, well, the beginnings of 46%. You got to figure out what the extra cost of O&M will be over those periods. But I just thought that was really big. This is time value associated for, so we look far, we're making predictions about far, far in the future, things that everybody usually fails at. But we have some numbers there to say a 50-year solar panel can increase your discounted cash flow 46%. That's cool to know. It's cool to think about if you're going to consider signing a longer land lease agreement. We're going to, and I don't know what's going to happen. I actually have some doubt on whether we'll want to keep the original panel around for 50 years because we might want to double our efficiency, keep our AC sizing the same, but then double our panel efficiency, get more panels and add some batteries and get a better energy profile, a longer profile. Because I think after 25 years, we're going to do a lot of repowering with bigger DC on the same AC connection. But who knows? We'll see what happens.
Yeah, I think that lower degradation is better, right? Period. It's going to give you better ROI. It's going to give you longer life so that you don't have to repower as often, which means less recycling or potential waste issues. So, yeah, this trend is something that we will continue to see. Lower degradation is better, and you want lower degradation. I mean, basically, the run-of-the-mill Tier 1 product is at 0.5% per year, which is only 12.5% over 25 years. It's not a huge amount. So you're at
Nope.
85% production after 25 years with standard modules. Now, if you go to a higher end module like this Meyer Burger glass on glass, then you're going to be at half that probably, right? Or
Probably a
third.
third. It's probably going to be, it says 90, it says 93, but I bet you're going to be at 95 or above. Meyer Burger's CEO, when we spoke about it, and he followed up, he said, listen, we saw no degradation. We had to put a number. So maybe this product is already that 50-year panel. And
the second law of thermodynamics does guarantee that there's going to be some degradation, I think. I don't believe in zero, but I believe in a low number, and lower is better. I don't believe zero, though.
I'm a sales guy, so almost zero.
Almost zero. I could buy that. I could buy almost zero. All right. Well, we've got a lovely story again from John Weaver about a study that I've had some dialogue with one of the researchers involved in this project. The title of your story is "Which Crops Pair Well with Solar? Illinois Study Aims to Find Out." I'm going to put this on screen. How did you come to the story, John, and what is the crux of this?
I probably got it because Google found it, because I have an RSS feed for all searches that say solar power. So every time Google finds something that says solar power, I see it. And I think that's where I found it. But the crux is that the University of Illinois is attempting to quantify what we can do with solar power and food. And they want to put out tools that allow developers to more easily create projects that combine solar plus food. So they're going to research 3 projects, one that's in Illinois, one that's in Colorado, and then another one. And after they finish researching it, then they're going to start developing some tools. And so their goal is to then, at the end of it, have packages and data and numbers and all kinds of good stuff that helps them discover how much renewable energy and how much food on a dollar amount will come out of a plot of land. And I think that's cool. I've been telling the CEO of Next Tracker, Shug, that he needs to figure out equations to combine Next Tracker single axis trackers and their sunlight with crops underneath them. And if he does that, he'll, he can then start selling like community solar projects, 6.5 megawatts that are really just little farms. Like I want to sell a farm plus solar power. What's it called? Franchise, where I come out to your farm. I say, okay, I'll help you do this. I'll take 10% and you run it and just, do a million of those.
Yeah, dual use solar, which is what we're talking about here, you're generating clean electricity, you're generating crops. They're totally compatible. The devil is in the details. And so my contact with this project was with a professor named Nenad Milkovich in mechanical engineering, and I was doing some designs for him for the grant proposal. I think they're looking at developing a pilot project that is higher off the ground than your standard single axis trackers. Typical trackers are 5 feet, 5 to 6 feet off the ground. If it's 2P, it's a little higher. If it's 1P, it's a little lower. And, you can definitely drive a tractor down the rows, but you can't necessarily drive a tractor underneath the panels. But this story specifically referenced Solar Farm 2, which is a Next Tracker 1P project. Yep. It's a 50-acre, 12-megawatt solar farm on the South Farms here in Champaign-Urbana. Nice, beautiful project that Sol Systems developed. We're going to bring the principal of this project, though, onto the show, John. Her name is Madhu Khanna, and nice. She is an ag economist and, really interested in sustainable technology. So we'll get the lowdown on what all they're going to be doing. Are they going to be using Solar Farm 2 at the U of I as part of this study? I hope so.
I think so, yes. No, it's one of the three. Yeah, it's one of the three. They're going to research that one, Jack's Garden in Colorado, and then a third facility.
Because I think they're also going to build a pilot, though, with a unique racking structure where they are putting it up higher off the ground than the standard racking. But we'll find out when we talk to Professor Khanna. So awesome. I have a phone call with her just later this week to tee it up, and then we'll bring her on with yourself on one of our Thursday recording sessions. So you can look forward to that. Anything else about this that you wanted to highlight for our listeners before we sign off?
I wanted to point out right now, agrivoltaics is trivial. We have almost none deployed. I think we just saw a project come out in Maine by Blue Wave and some other groups that's 4, 5, 6 megs of solar plus blueberries. And the blueberries are literally underneath the solar panels, directly underneath it, which I thought was great. But we're also only at 3% of total electricity from solar. And the president's talking about 40%. So that means we're going to grow our solar that we've all worked so hard to deploy. Like, we've worked our asses off, Tim, and we've gotten to 3%. Now we want to grow it by 13 more times. There's going to be a lot of agrivoltaic product installed, is my hope and my belief. So I like this study because it could be one of many that helps us quantify food plus energy.
And then there's the whole grazing thing too, right? And we have the American Solar Grazing Association. I've had Lexi Hain on the show. I'm actually going to be giving a little talk for that group about racking technologies and how you can maximize production on difficult sites. And so it's a burgeoning ecosystem, so to speak, and it's just very early days. So ag and solar are compatible, and I think that the economics will be there once we just dial this in a little more, right? Because You really are getting two revenue streams then, right? You've got the electricity revenue stream and the if there's RECs available, and then you're getting the crops or the livestock, and it's a win-win. So, unfortunately, we have to move along. How can our listeners reach you, John?
Commercialsolarguy.com. That's my website. If you like Twitter, I'm on there way too much. I'm also on LinkedIn, but my website, that's where we got our contact us page, and it's where you can see some of our projects. Check it
And
out.
you can also find John, of course, on PV Magazines. If you just search John Weaver, you'll find all his stories, and we'll put links to the stories we cover in our show notes. You can find all of this content at cleanpowerhour.com. That includes links to our YouTube channel and then all of our audio channels like Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts. My only ask is, give us a thumbs up, give us a rating and a review on Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast player. Subscribe to our email list there on cleanpowerhour.com so we can give you the latest and greatest what's going on with the Clean Power Hour. We're bringing you weekly news roundups plus interviews, so check it out. And with that, I'm Tim Montague, your co-host. Let's grow solar and storage. Thank you, John Weaver.